Chapter 3 Rabbit Brush. "Follow me," Josefina shouted happily. She ran up the hill as swift and light as a bird skimming over a stream. The air at the top smelled of juniper and pinon. It was pure and cool, and thin and sweet. Josefina turned around and called back to her sisters, "Wait till you see! There's lots of rabbit brush up here." Josefina and her sisters were on an expedition to gather wildflowers, herbs, roots, barks, berries, and leaves. They'd use them to make dyes to color the wool for weaving. Teresita had told Josefina that the Navajos used rabbit brush blossoms to make many shades of yellow. Ana, Francesca, and Clara were not far behind Josefina on the path. Hi, welcome. We're reading from this book tonight. I'm sorry, I don't accept invites for my readings, but you're welcome to stay and enjoy. Josefina was glad it was almost time for the midday meal. She knew that Carmen the cook had packed tortillas, onions, squash, goat cheese, and plums for them to eat. The canteen was full of cold water to drink. Miguel, Carmen's husband, was carrying the food and the canteen. He had come along to be sure the girls were safe. "Oh," said Anna when she reached the top of the hill, "isn't it pretty up here?" Josefina thought Anna looked very pretty herself. She was a little breathless, and her cheeks were reddened by the climb and the wind. All the sisters seemed to be in high spirits. They set to work gathering rabbit brush, delighted to be out in the bracing air and bright sunshine. Clara, who usually liked to keep her feet firmly on the ground, seemed to have a bounce in her step today. And Francesca, who was usually so careful of her appearance, didn't seem to care that her hair was windblown and tousled and had yellow leaf caught in it. "Look," said Josefina. She took the leaf out of Francesca's hair and twirled it on its stem. The leaf was such a sunny yellow. Josefina thought about saving it to put in her memory box, along with the pretty swallow's feather she'd found earlier. She kept things that reminded her of Mama in her memory box. Mama had loved sallows, and she had loved autumn too, when the bright yellow leaves stood out against the dark green of the mountainsides and shimmered against the deep blue sky. Hi, welcome. But Josefina knew that the little leaf would soon turn brown and crumble, so she let it go. She watched the breeze catch it and send it swooping and flying as if it were a tiny yellow bird. Josefina loved autumn as much as Mama had. It was a busy time on the rancho. All the harvested crops had to be stored properly to preserve them for the winter. The storeroom was full of garlic, onions, beans, corn, squash, pumpkins, cheeses, and meats. The adobe bins in the granero were full of grain to be ground into flour. Josefina and her sisters had made strings of squash slices, apple slices, red chilies, and herbs. The strings would hang near the earth where they would dry and be handy for use in cooking throughout the winter. Hi, welcome. Josefina always enjoyed the cheerful bustle in the kitchen at harvest time, but it was a treat to be out and away today, high up on this golden hillside with her sisters. The morning had flown by. Now it was midday, and the sisters gathered around the food Carmen had packed for them, Miguel found a sunny spot nearby and took his afternoon rest while the girls ate. Josefina bit into a plum that was warm from the sunshine. The breeze lifted her hair off her back and cooled her face. "I wish Tia Dolores had been able to come with us today," she said. She'd enjoy this. Tia Dolores had gone to the village. She was bringing food to some of the villagers who had lost their crops in the flood. "See," agreed Anna and Clara. Francesca had a mouthful of tortilla. Josefina grinned. She took a sprig of rabbit brush out of her basket and pretended to be Tia Dolores. "We'll put these flowers to good use, won't we, girls?" she said, imitating Tia Dolores' energetic manner. Anna and Clara laughed, especially when Josefina put the flowers to good use, tickling them. But Francesca grabbed the flowers away. "Whenever Tia Dolores talks about putting things to good use, it always ends up meaning more work for us," she grumbled. "All this weaving, for example." Josefina smiled. "I like the weaving," she said. "Well," said Francesca, "it's new to you. But I find it very dull." She collapsed back on the grass and fanned herself with a sprig of flowers. "I'm worn out from it." "Now, Francesca," Anna scolded in her kindly, motherly way. "You have plenty of energy for things you enjoy, like dancing. Pretend you're dancing while you work at the loom. Dance on the treadles." "I can't dance very well with the loom," said Francesca shortly. "You don't weave very well with the loom either," said Clara. "Weaving is just the sort of slow, patient work you're not good at, Francesca." Francesca made a face. "Work," she said. "I thought that when Tia Dolores came, there would be less work for us, not more." "She doesn't ask us to do any more than she does herself," said Clara. "You're right," said Francesca, sitting up. "Tia Dolores is always at work. She's always trying to fix things and improve things and change things, especially us." Francesca poked and prodded Clara's arm with a sprig of rabbit brush as she continued to complain. "Tia Dolores is always trying to poke and prod us into being different than we are. She's never satisfied. She always thinks we can be better." "Hi, welcome." "Tia Dolores came to teach us," said Anna. "She's not a servant." "She certainly is not," agreed Francesca. "She seems to think she is the patrona. Look at how she's put herself in charge of the weaving business." Tia Dolores had also taken on the responsibility of keeping track of the number of blankets the rancho was producing. "As Papa said, we must replace the sheep," Anna said calmly. She collected the remains of the food, and the girls started back down the hill with Miguel. Anna walked next to Francesca. "We should be grateful to Tia Dolores for her good idea and hard work. She is helping us, and that is exactly what we asked her to do." Francesca frowned. "Tia Dolores' help is not exactly what I expected it to be," she said. "Tia Dolores isn't either. She seems different than she was when she came here the first time." "Yes," said Josefina. She turned around and walked backwards a few steps, so that she could face her sisters. "Tia Dolores seems happier." "Hi, welcome." "I think she is," said Anna. "She even looks happier. And prettier, too. She's not so thin and pale as she was." "She's letting her skin get rough and red," said Francesca, who was vain about her own complexion. Josefina did not like to hear Francesca criticize Tia Dolores. "Why are you speaking this way about Tia Dolores?" she asked Francesca. "You were the one who used to say that she was elegant and that her clothes are beautiful." "She never wears those beautiful clothes anymore," said Francesca. Just everyday work clothes. She shook her head and said mournfully, "Soon, I expect none of us will have anything but worn out, workaday clothes." Clara snorted. "You'd have a fancy new dress if you'd ever settle down and finish it," she said. Francesca ignored her. "Tia Dolores is determined to weave all our wool into blankets," she said. I'm sure she won't spare even enough for new sashes for us. Not that it matters how we look. We don't have time to do anything but work these days. We're up long before dawn." "Ah, that's it," said Anna. "You are out of sorts because you have to get up so early." Anna, Clara, and Josefina glanced at each other and hid their smiles. Francesca was well known for being slow to rise in the morning. Anna went on, "Mama always said, 'No one has a sweeter temper than you do, Francesca, as long as you have plenty of sleep.'" Josefina noticed that when Anna mentioned Mama, a strange look crossed Francesca's face. Francesca started to say something, but then she seemed to change her mind. She said nothing. Josefina took hold of Francesca's hand and swung it as they walked together. "Remember the morning song Mama used to sing to help you wake up?" she asked Francesca. Ever so briefly, the strange look crossed Francesca's face again. Then she began to sing, "Rise in the morning." She stopped. "How did it go?" she asked. "I've forgotten." "Sing it for me, Josefina." "You're welcome." Thank you for all the likes, everybody. Josefina began to sing. "Here comes the dawn, now that gives us the light of day. Arise in the morning and see that the day has dawned." Oh, thank you so much for the roses, Madison B. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Josefina sang the song in her clear, sweet voice as the girls made their way down the hill. Tia Dolores met them as they passed the orchard. She was carrying a basket full of apples, walking with her usual purposeful stride. Wisps of her ruddy auburn hair curled out from under her rebozo, and her skirt flapped in the wind. "Josefina," she said, "I do love to hear you sing." She smiled. "Perhaps you'll sing a special song for all the village to hear as part of the Christmas celebration this year." Josefina could feel her own smile sink right off her face. "Oh, no, Tia Dolores," she said quickly, too surprised to be polite. She spoke again, this time with more respect. I beg your pardon, but no. Thank you." "Why not?" asked Tia Dolores. "A lovely voice like yours is a gift from God. I am sure God means you to use it to delight others, especially if you do so to celebrate Him." Josefina thought of how it would feel to have everyone looking at her, everyone listening to her sing all alone. She shivered. It was scarier than lightning. "I'm sorry," she said, stumbling over the words. "I just couldn't." Tia Dolores looked Josefina straight in the eye. "You mean you don't want to," she said, "but perhaps one day you will." Josefina felt something jab her arm. It was the sprig of rabbit brush, and Francesca was poking her with it. Francesca raised one eyebrow and gave Josefina a look that said, "You see? Remember what I said about Tia Dolores poking and prodding us to be different than we are? Wasn't I right?" Thank you so much for all the likes, everybody. Thank you for the gifts. I really appreciate it. So that's the end of the chapter for tonight.